we've had a very good off season coming out of our Sun Belt Conference tournament, 4 overtime tournament loss to Arkansas State. Our guys were very enthusiastic about going back to work. Right after that, we didn't take as much time off as we normally would at the end of the season. We let our guys go home in June, brought them back in July. I think we progressed throughout July with our 4 new guys, and through 18 practices at this point, I'm really encouraged about this team. We're a year older. We've got 13 juniors and seniors. 2 years ago, we were one of the youngest teams in Division I basketball, and now, you know, we've progressed to a point where hopefully we can make that maturity pay off for us at this point. Not saying what that equates to, but through 18 practices, I'm very encouraged. I'm mostly encouraged about our senior leadership, and I think that's something that you always look at from a coach's standpoint, is that you'll be as good as your senior leadership is. And J.T. Thomas is a very good leader for us. He's a young man that started at point guard for us last year in our first 4 games, averaged about 28, 26 minutes a game, and was injured, and we lost him for the rest of the season. I always refer to him as a senior with him being back with us. He did gain that year back, so he's a redshirt junior. Ben Dillard's a 4-year senior for us. Gus Leeper's a 5th-year senior for us. So I like this group, and I like where we are at this point.
Thank you very much, Coach Shields. As a reminder to the media, please press *1 on your phones to get in the queue to ask questions. Our first questions come from Paragould, Arkansas. Caller, please identify yourself and go ahead.
Hey, Coach, it's Brad Bobo at 95.3 The Ticket. How are you?
Good, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing well. In the women's end, you mentioned the tournament game with Arkansas State, but it was said down there that, you know, from a fan standpoint, you had to miss a heck of a game by coaching. And I was just wondering at any point in the off-season, the summer, you know, they could kind of watch that game and get a chance to see what the rest of us saw at night.
Yeah, well, and you're right. It was a great basketball game, probably more so from a fan's perspective than a coach's perspective, or at least from my perspective. John's perspective was a little bit better with the finish of it, but it was a great college basketball game. I was real proud of our guys' effort, their togetherness. You know, really disappointed for Leroy Eisler, who played his last college basketball game that night, played extremely well. Unfortunately, you know, Will Neighbor was with us but wasn't able to suit up at that point. But I just think that has helped our guys come out of the off-season and trying to turn a negative into a positive with great energy, great enthusiasm about them to continue to work and get better. I mean, we haven't had to fight some of the things you fight with a young team as far as getting them early to workouts, you know, for 6 a.m. workouts, getting them in there to do extra work on their own, and that sort of thing that you shouldn't have to do from an experience level team.
And the last thing, you know, I know different people have different values they place on their preseason polls. When you look at new teams, and then some teams, you know, like Arkansas State with just so many new faces, was this maybe even a more challenging kind of preseason poll, or kind of what to think about the league up and down going into this season?
You know, Brad, I'll be honest. On the poll, I think you've got to look at Georgia State with what they did last year, having gone through conference play, only losing 1 game. They've got Hunter back. They've got Harold back. Ron does a phenomenal job. They're going to be a really good team. Everybody knows that. You've got to look at Lafayette as well, and Bob does a phenomenal job there. And you look at what those 2 teams did in conference play in Lafayette, what they did in the tournament to get to the NCAA tournament. So those 2 are established, in my opinion, even with Peyton gone, with Long back and the number of guys that can shoot the ball for Lafayette, number of guys and how well coached both those teams are. I think after that, you can throw a lot of teams into a hat and make an argument for any of them. And you mentioned John's team. I mean, John does a great job, as we all know. You don't take a team to the Final Four, as he did at LSU, and do what he's done there at Arkansas State and not be a great coach. And his team's going to be in the mix. I can tell you that, because his teams always defend, they always rebound, they always take good shots. And so they're going to be in the mix. Hopefully, we'll be in the mix as well. I mean, there's some areas that are concerning for me. I mean, we don't rebound the ball as well as we need to. We don't have the kind of size that we've had the last couple of years from that aspect. I think we share the basketball much better than we have the last couple of years. We're a better shooting team than what we've been, and hopefully time will prove that to be. But I think those two teams you can look at first and foremost when you're talking about Georgia State and Lafayette, and then, you know, the rest of us, you know, you can make an argument different ways.
Thank you, Coach.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad. And our next questions come from Josh Parrott. Josh, please go ahead.
Morning, Coach. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. I don't want to focus too much on what you would consider probably a negative or something that's not a positive with Will not coming back. How do you see you guys being able to kind of replace his productivity, given what he did, you know, consistently over the last few years for you guys? I know you have Higgins coming back. You have some talented newcomers. You have White back as well. But I didn't know how you guys feel, at least at this point, how you'll be able to kind of replace that production that's lost with Will.
Great question, Josh. And when you think about it, you don't easily replace 16 points and 7 rebounds a game. Will was a very good player for us for 3 years here. Unfortunately for Will in our program, we had some experience last year playing without him. And with him, I think he missed the last 7 games of the year with us due to the shoulder injury that he suffered in our home game against UTA. I thought there were times during that stretch where our guys rallied together and really played some of our better basketball. I thought our ball movement was very good during that stretch. I thought we might not have been so one-dimensional. And when you've got a really good player like Will, sometimes that can cause you to be a little bit more one-dimensional because you focus so much on getting him the basketball. But we are going to miss Will, without a doubt. But I think we've got some good players that we've added this last off season in the recruiting periods, and I think we've got some good players back. I think James White, with another year of maturity, he's been able to keep his weight up. He's a 4th-year junior for us, and has had an excellent off season. Practicing very well. The thing we've got to do with James, we've got to be able to keep him on the floor and keep him out of foul trouble. Gus Leeper's another guy who's got another year under his belt. Josh Higgins is an upperclassman now as a junior. Then I mentioned earlier about Ben Dillard, and having JT back is a big lift for us. Devontae Smith being back, and Devontae gave great minutes in JT's absence last year. And then you look at some of the additions that we've added. You know, Roger Woods is going to be a very good player for us here over the next 2 years. I mean, he's a young man that we added from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College and averaged, I think, 19 and 7. It was an all-region player. Has that knack for being able to score the ball. Kind of an undersized, small forward, but he can get to the foul line. And I'll tell you this, Josh, that's something that last year's team missed on our part. We struggled to get to the foul line, and Roger will help us from that standpoint of being able to drive the ball and put pressure on people on the offensive end.
You have JT back. You have Devontae back as well. You talked a little bit already about how Devontae filled in with JT being out. They're both back. How does that seem to be shaping up at this point? Doesn't ever seem to be an issue having two. It's not a bad thing to have 2 guys who can play the position. It doesn't necessarily matter who starts, but I didn't know how you guys, at least going into the year, were looking to kind of manage that situation at the point.
You bet, Josh. I'll tell you this. The thing that I like best about both those two guys, when you're talking about Devontae and JT, I don't think either one of them cares who starts, to be quite honest. And when we started the season last year, Devontae's energy level was outstanding in practice. His minutes in the game were very good, and he was only playing 14 or 15 minutes before JT was hurt. And I think those guys complement each other very well. Both of them are about winning. That's all they want to do. And when you get that in point guard play, that's something that's a real positive for any team. And the second thing is those two guys' assist-to-turnover ratio, and that's something that any coach aspires to have from point guard play. And Devontae was phenomenal last year when JT went out. I don't remember the exact stat. Patrick Newton, our SID, gave me a stat. At one point, I think he was in the top 15 in assist-to-turnover ratio in Division I basketball. I think it was something like 2.9 to 1 assist-to-turnover ratio, and that's a strength of Devontae's. He's not a great scorer. He's more of a setup guy and likes to get his teammates involved, and I think JT's very similar.
And Coach, last question. As far as the breakdown of the league, a little bit of a new dynamic with some new teams. What do you know about the teams that are new to the league, and how do you see them perhaps making an impact? Maybe not just necessarily this year, but the kind of moving ahead.
To be honest with that, I wish I knew more about these new teams. I mean, I don't. When you get so focused on your own league over the years, and I know we've had some change in our league in the recent couple of years, but I don't know as much as I probably should and will in time about App State, about Georgia Southern, and those guys. But just being around those coaches at our league meetings this spring, I mean, I know they'll bring a great product to our league. I'm looking forward to the future of this league. I think it continues to get better. When you look at Georgia State, Lafayette, as we mentioned earlier, I think it'll be an exciting year for Sun Belt Conference basketball.
Steve, thank you, man. I always enjoy talking with you. I appreciate your time, and hope you guys can stay a little bit healthier this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Coach Shields. That's all the time we have for you today. Good luck this season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.